nice to people, and nice to credit couples. You see this young lady over here? Yes. Do you have anything in this shop as beautiful as she is? Oh yes. When it comes to the romantic comedies of the 90s, few films shine as brightly as Pretty Woman. The movie is widely regarded as one of the most iconic and beloved entries in the genre, as it offers a modern twist on the classic Cinderella story. With its captivating story and the stellar performances from Richard Gere and Julia Roberts, the film captured the hearts of viewers around the globe, despite the surprising number of wardrobe malfunctions. That's right, one of the most successful romantic comedies ever made had quite a few mistakes that viewers have spotted, even in some of your favorite scenes. You might have missed them, but we haven't. So let's get right into it. Pretty Woman. If you haven't seen Pretty Woman before, there's a lot to unpack, so sit back, because we've got you covered. The movie details the journey of a young call girl, Vivian, after she's hired by a businessman named Edward. Sounds like a rather generic plot point, right? But here's where it gets crazy. Edward simply needs a call girl because he wants a companion for important, high-class social engagements with various business associates. What's even crazier is that Edward has a girlfriend, but because he believes she will complicate matters for him, he decides to ditch her and instead hire Vivian when he meets her on one of her nights out at work. Naturally, he believes she's the perfect solution, and when he presents the arrangement to her, she takes it. Now, the thing is, Vivian is a call girl, and she's not really used to men treating her like she matters, so she's immediately blown away by how gentlemanly her new companion is. Plus, she struggles to understand his rich way of living. Eventually, the duo begins to understand that they come from different worlds, and as they get closer, they realize that there are more benefits intertwined with their relationship than they initially thought. Vivian even helps Edward out with his business meetings, while on the other hand, he broadens her horizons and her mind. In the end, they fall in love despite all odds, leading to one of the most interesting couple dynamics in cinema. The unlikely love story was certainly captivating as Vivian charmed Edward with her pretty looks, which gave the movie its iconic name. But that name, Pretty Woman, was even more unlikely when the movie started shooting, as it was almost called something entirely different. Different? Title? With how great this movie turned out to be, you'd think they had everything planned out from A to Z. Well, here's a shocker. Not only did the movie not have a solid ending the moment they began filming, but the original script was actually titled $3,000. Yeah, let's just be thankful they made the switch. The script was written by J.F. Lawton as a dark drama about a Hollywood box who begins a relationship with some hotshot businessman. And it wasn't only the title that had to be switched out, as unlike in the movie we all saw, the couple's dynamic in the original script was a bit more complex. Plus, the old script tackled rather controversial themes like substance addiction, which the movie was meant to explore bluntly. Thankfully, once Disney got hold of the rights to the film, they got director Gary Marshall, a Hollywood comedy powerhouse, to work on the script. And after several rewrites, its tone changed. Still, it wasn't as easy to decide on what they wanted the movie's tone to be like. For instance, the House of Mouse's ex-president, Jeffrey Katzenberg, stated that he wanted it reworked into a whimsical, more fairy tale-like story, which eventually happened. It was from this moment that Pretty Woman took on the tale of an escort with a heart of gold, and her one-week affair with a corporate raider, which eventually culminated in a genuine romance. Pretty sweet, isn't it? Well, back to the title. The movie was initially supposed to take on the title from the script, alluding to the amount Vivian and Edward agreed on. Later on, the producers and writers sat around and decided that Pretty Woman was a more appropriate title, considering it was now a whimsical fairy tale. And $3,000 just made it sound like a bank ad or a sci-fi movie about the future. Either way, we're glad the change was made. Tie mistake. No matter how much we strive to achieve perfection, It's just not attainable. That's why in any movie you see, there are bound to be mistakes. In fact, some viewers even make it into some fun kind of game where they try to spot the mistakes or errors in a movie. Pretty Woman was no exception. Although, if you don't have a keen eye, you might not notice this little continuity error. There's a scene in the movie when Vivian is watching I Love Lucy. She gets up, goes over to Edward and undoes his tie. And then she goes to do something else. But in the next shot, we get of Edward. His tie is done. And then we get another cut to Vivian. It cuts back to Edward once more, and his tie is undone again. What is he? The Flash? Viewers have chalked it down to just an unnoticeable little error in continuity, which we honestly do not blame them for. Plus, errors like this are pretty entertaining to spot. But this next one is sure to blow your mind. Croissant or pancake? What's a fairy tale movie without a shape-shifting breakfast? Fans of the movie probably wouldn't have questioned this obvious mistake in the scene where Vivian was eating a croissant if a fairy godmother was waving around a magic wand. But alas, there was none. So when viewers noticed Vivian's croissant turned into a pancake in the next shot, everyone was quick to point fingers at the producers and editors. Didn't they pay attention, or what? It was really hard to ignore this one, considering it's literally one of the most infamous mistakes in major Hollywood movie history. The scene begins with Vivian having breakfast with Edward, but in the few seconds where there's a cut between the duo, the croissant becomes a small pancake. Naturally, some fans argued that the logic was simple. Vivian placed the croissant down and began chowing down on the pancake. But yeah, that won't slide because, as you can clearly tell, the pancake already has a bite taken out when we get her scene once again. So it's definitely an editing error. In the end, the behind-the-scenes occurrence was pretty clear. Like in most movie scenes, the final sequence was put together after taking a number of shots. So we can pretty much conclude that the continuity checker was probably just asleep or about to finish up for the day when he allowed that one to slip by him. So let's just wish him better luck next time. If you think the shape-shifting breakfast was crazy, wait till you hear about Gary Marshall's temporary stint as a masseuse. Popped vein? We all get a little nervous when we're about to do something really huge. So we really can't blame Julia for getting so nervous on set that a literal vein popped out on her forehead. This happened during the intimate scene with Edward. After she got the jitters so bad, the vein on her forehead decided to come into play. Interestingly, her nerves also made her develop a case of hives. So the makeup department ensured they had calamine lotion on set to soothe her skin till filming resumed once again. The runaway vein was so noticeable on her forehead that the director had to stop filming so they could attend to it. The vein was probably just desperate for a movie appearance. But unfortunately for it, Gary Marshall hopped right into bed with Julia and Richard and massaged that vein until it was completely relaxed, and they were ready to film once more. Good choice, because as much as we love a good vein, it would have looked very out of place in a hot romantic scene. Let's just take a moment to applaud the behind-the-scenes efforts that go into giving us a phenomenal work of art. The red jacket. It's no surprise that there were very strict costume requirements for this movie, especially with a budget of $14 million. However, when you have to run some last-minute errands, no one is going to be mad if you have to make do with what you can find. That's exactly what happened on the set of the film. The shopping scene is one of the most iconic scenes in the film. And while the red dress takes the cake as the most famous costume, there was one red vintage jacket that the costume department hurriedly had to purchase for only $30 at a street corner store. In case you're still wondering, it's the red jacket Vivian slings over her mini dress and thigh-high boots when looking for business. You wouldn't believe that such a pivotal piece of the movie was actually a last-minute find purchased from a cinema usher the crew approached on the street. The crew went into a bit of a panic when they realized they didn't have the red jacket the script referred to. But little did they know the star of the show was simply waiting to be carted away from the arms of the cinema usher. In the end, they bought it from the usher, Julia Warrod, and the rest is history. Fire escape scene. Did you know that the movie was originally going to end with Vivian being thrown out of Edward's car after they got into an argument? If you didn't, now you do. But we're glad they switched it up. And instead, we got the final scene on the fire escape. Interestingly, there's also an interesting story behind this one. The scene had to be reshot over and over and required up to 9 takes because every time they tried to shoot that particular scene, something just had to happen. At one point, Richard's suit got dirtied up from all the stair climbing he was doing. And at another point, Julia's shoes kept slipping. In another take, opera music came floating into the shot from the neighboring house. And on another occasion, pigeons decided it was time to fly over the apartment. They eventually got the final edit, which was the ending that we saw of Edward climbing up the fire escape, holding roses in hand to woo Vivian, with the sounds of the opera playing in the background. The romantic comedy became a defining film in its genre, but its journey to the screen was far from smooth. And not just with the shooting, it even faced hurdles before filming began. Different cast. Before Julia Roberts and Richard Gere lit up the screen with their unforgettable chemistry, finding the perfect pair to play Vivian Ward and Edward Lewis was no easy feat. The casting process was long and uncertain, and despite Pretty Woman's fairy tale premise, it was far from a guaranteed hit. Yet the film defied expectations, becoming the third highest-grossing movie of 1990, thanks in large part to the magnetic connection between its two leads. But things could have turned out very differently. For Edward's role, director Gary Marshall had an extensive wish list of Hollywood heavyweights: Christopher Reeve, Daniel Day-Lewis, Kevin Kline, Denzel Washington, Albert Brooks, Burt Reynolds, John Travolta, Liam Neeson, Sting, Sam Neill, Charles Grodin, Christopher Lambert, and Michael Douglas were all in the mix. Al Pacino even screen-tested with Roberts, but ultimately passed, saying the role just didn't feel right. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. Richard Gere also initially walked away from the part, wary of Edward's cold, manipulative character in early versions of the script. But producer Gary W. Goldstein wouldn't give up on Gere, convinced he was the ideal fit. Once Disney and director Gary Marshall officially signed on, it was Julia herself who helped seal the deal. In a final meeting, she looked Gere in the eyes and simply said, "Please say yes." That heartfelt moment changed everything. Though it took time, missteps, and a revolving door of potential stars, the ultimate pairing of Julia and Richard was pure movie magic, one that would charm audiences around the globe and become a timeless classic. Edward presents Vivian with the necklace. Interestingly, just like Edward's character, the filmmakers were initially drawn to Julia for the role of Vivian. However, the turbulent pre-production phase of the movie meant that her casting wasn't immediate. When Disney acquired the script, Julia was already attached to the project, but the studio aimed to cast a more established actress in the lead, considering Julia was relatively unknown at the time. Initially, Gary had his eye on Karen Allen, and Meg Ryan was also a top contender. After both declined, the filmmakers had to hold open auditions with numerous actresses vying for the coveted role. According to casting director Dory Zuckerman, the audition room saw the likes of Laura Dern, Demi Moore, Marisa Tomei, Annabelle Sierra, Lorraine Bracco, Michelle Pfeiffer, Valeria Golino, Patricia Arquette, and Mary Steenburgen. Molly Ringwald declined the role due to her reluctance to portray a call girl, while Winona Ryder and Jennifer Connelly were deemed too young for the part. Diane Lane came close to snagging the role before scheduling conflicts arose. And as tensions mounted, and the studio faced the possibility of losing Julia to another project, they found themselves cornered. Despite the myriad obstacles that Pretty Woman encountered, fate seemed to align perfectly for the roles of Vivian and Edward to land with Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. Seriously, it's nearly impossible to envision how the movie would have unfolded without their iconic pairing, as we'd have never gotten the iconic scene where Edward pretends to snap Vivian's fingers with the jewelry box since it was completely improvised. It's a little hard to believe that the scene, which ended up becoming one of the most iconic in cinematic history, never might have happened if the casting directors failed to cast this duo. In hindsight, it's clear that every twist and turn in the casting process ultimately contributed to the film's enduring success. Julia's portrayal of Vivian and Richard's embodiment of Edward not only captured the hearts of audiences, but also solidified their status as one of Hollywood's most beloved on-screen couples. Photoshopped head. Julia might have done all the love scenes in the movie herself, but on the poster, it's pretty much just her head making an appearance. Yes, that's just her head photoshopped onto her stunt double, Shelley Michelle's body. Interestingly, Richard also has a little bit of Photoshop done on him, but it's not as noticeable unless you take an intentional look. Can you guess where it is? That's right, his hair. Richard actually has gray hair in the movie, but on the poster it's jet black. It's unsurprising considering they literally photoshopped Julia's head on, but it's honestly a little funny and quite impressive too. Ferrari and Porsche. Did you know that Edward's choice of car adds an interesting layer to the story? Originally, the filmmakers wanted him to drive a Ferrari or a Porsche, emblematic of his wealth and status. However, both vehicle brands declined, wary that they'd be linked to the theme of soliciting escorts portrayed in the film. This decision led the production team to resume the search for an alternative vehicle that still exuded luxury and sophistication. Eventually, Lotus offered their 1989 5's Esprit SE as a substitute, stepping in to fill the void left by the prestigious brands. The silver Lotus Esprit SE became synonymous with Edward's character, embodying his affluent lifestyle while avoiding the controversy surrounding the original car choices. Interestingly, the film's release sparked a surge in interest in the Esprit model, with orders for the car tripling in the wake of its on-screen appearance. We're pretty sure Ferrari and Porsche must have regretted their decision. Tickle time. This next one is guaranteed to make you break out in a giggle. During the filming of the iconic scene where Vivian indulges in a moment of simple joy, lying on the floor and watching I Love Lucy, Gary encountered a delightful challenge. Recognizing the significance of capturing authentic emotions on camera, Gary sought to evoke genuine laughter from Julia, who was already doing such a great job portraying Vivian with such depth and charisma. In a stroke of directorial ingenuity, Gary decided to employ a playful tactic to elicit the desired reaction from Roberts. With the cameras rolling and the crew ready to capture the magic of the moment, Gary took it upon himself to tickle Julia's feet off camera. The unexpected gesture caught her off guard, prompting her to burst into a hysterical laughter that reverberated throughout the set. This impromptu moment of levity not only added an element of spontaneity to the scene, but also highlighted the camaraderie between the director and his cast. Gary's willingness to go to such lengths to ensure the authenticity of the performance speaks volumes about his dedication to his craft and his commitment to creating memorable cinematic moments. Although Julia later shared in an interview that this long-standing belief was actually a rumor, and Gary simply made jokes to get her to laugh, please say yes. No one's getting married right now. But someone did have to say yes before filming ever began. In a delightful twist of fate reminiscent of a classic rom-com storyline, Julia played the role of a real-life matchmaker to persuade Richard to join the cast. Despite his initial reluctance to take on the role of Edward, Julia took matters into her own hands, channeling her on-screen charm into a real-life persuasion tactic. As Richard continued to decline the role, Gary enlisted Julia to intervene, recognizing her undeniable chemistry with Richard as crucial to the film's success. This led Julia, armed with nothing but a humble post-it note and a heart full of determination, to make her way to Richard's apartment, ready to make her pitch. With a simple yet earnest message scrawled on the post-it note, "Please say yes," she managed to capture his attention, and ultimately, his heart. Richard later reminisced about the moment, recalling how he was mesmerized by her sincerity and charm as she handed him the note. Her heartfelt plea proved to be the turning point, melting his resolve and convincing him to take on the role. This real-life romantic gesture between the duo not only mirrors the enchanting dynamics of their on-screen chemistry, but also adds a whimsical touch to their off-screen relationship. Armed guard on set. Speaking of being armed, there was a literal armed guard on set, and you'd never believe why. The dazzling necklace featured in the iconic case-snapping scene was not just a prop for show, but an original piece of jewelry valued at an impressive $250. Such a valuable item naturally warranted extra security measures during filming. To ensure the necklace's safety, the jewelry store responsible for its loan sent an armed security guard to stand watch over Gary as he directed the scene. The expensive necklace worn by Julia during the opera scene was equally breathtaking and costly. Valued at £200,000, this custom-made creation by renowned French jeweler Fred Joyer was a masterpiece in its own right. Crafted from 23 pear-cut rubies, each shimmering with rich red hues, the necklace was further adorned with diamond-encrusted hearts, all set in exquisite 18-karat white gold. The opera scene. The moment when Edward takes Vivian to see the opera La Traviata adds depth and symbolism to their burgeoning relationship. The choice of La Traviata as the opera they attend is not merely coincidental. Rather, it serves as a reflection of the film's central themes and narrative arc. La Traviata tells the tale of a glamorous courtesan who finds herself swept away by the promise of a new life with her lover, mirroring the journey of Vivian as she navigates her relationship with Edward and dreams of a better future. The decision to film the opera scene in San Francisco initially added to the authenticity and grandeur of the moment. However, when a devastating 6.9 magnitude earthquake hit the city, forcing a change of plans, the production team had to improvise. In a stroke of resourcefulness, they opted to film the exterior scenes at the University of Southern California's History Museum instead, seamlessly integrating the new location into the storyline. Despite the unforeseen challenges posed by the earthquake, the essence of the scene remained intact, capturing the enchantment and romance of Vivian and Edward's night at the opera. Plus, the juxtaposition of opulence and adversity only served to enhance the emotional impact of the moment. The red dress, perhaps the most iconic outfit in the movie, the red dress turned heads not only on set, but also in real life. But did you know that the creation of the iconic off-the-shoulder red gown was a journey filled with twists and turns? The costume department actually almost missed the opportunity for cinematic greatness. Initially, the studio insisted on a mundane black dress for the character, a decision that costume designer Marilyn Vance found utterly uninspiring. Recognizing the role that Vivian's attire would play in shaping her character and the visual impact of the scene, Vance pushed back against the studio's preference for black, advocating for a bold red gown instead. Vance understood that a black dress would fail to capture the imagination of audiences in the same way that a vibrant red gown could. With unwavering conviction, she set out to prove her point, creating not one but 3 different dresses for the opera scene. Each design was meticulously crafted, with Vance pouring her creativity and expertise into every stitch and detail. In the end, it was the fiery red gown that emerged, victorious, captivating everyone with its undeniable allure and elegance. The moment Vivian stepped onto the screen in that stunning red dress, it was clear that Vance's intuition had been spot on. The gown not only complemented Julia's radiant beauty, but also became an integral part of the film's visual identity, leaving a mark on audiences worldwide. The decision to defy convention and embrace the boldness of red was a testament to Vance's vision and artistry as a costume designer. By daring to challenge the status quo, she elevated Pretty Woman from a mere romantic comedy to a timeless cinematic masterpiece. The red dress became more than just a piece of clothing. It was also a symbol of Vivian's transformation from a vulnerable outsider to a confident, empowered woman who commands attention and respect. In the end, the off-the-shoulder red gown served as a fitting metaphor for the film itself, a bold and unapologetic celebration of love, beauty, and the transformative power of taking risks. Bubble bath scene. At this point, you shouldn't be surprised by most of the behind-the-scenes shenanigans these guys were up to. But let's just throw in a couple more. During the scene in which Julia sang a Prince song in the bathtub, slid down and submerged her head under the bubbles. She emerged to find the crew had left, except for the cameraman, who captured the moment on film. As a prank during the shooting of the bubble bath scene, everyone except the cameraman left while she was submerged. Loose teeth. The tension between Edward and Jason Alexander's portrayal of Philip Stuckey, Edward's lawyer, comes to a head in a memorable fight scene. To ensure the authenticity of the confrontation, both actors were instructed to make the altercation as realistic as possible. However, their commitment to realism led to an unexpected turn of events. During the intense scuffle, the actors took their direction a bit too literally, engaging in a physical exchange that bordered on genuine. In the heat of the moment, a powerful blow landed, causing Richard to suffer a minor injury. His crown was knocked loose. Despite the unexpected hiccup, the duo's commitment to their roles resulted in a gripping and believable fight sequence that resonated with audiences. Their willingness to immerse themselves fully in their characters' dynamics speaks volumes about their dedication to their craft and their desire to bring depth and authenticity to their performances. Plus, not only is Richard really good at improvising, he's also pretty good at playing the piano. You might not know this, but during the piano scene in the movie, the real sound the keys made was too scattered, so it had to be dubbed in. And Richard jumped in to compose the piece that he eventually plays in that scene, filmed in real locations. The movie captivated audiences not only with its charming storyline, but also with its picturesque backdrop of Los Angeles, blending studio sets with real-life locations to create an immersive experience. Filming took place in various locations, including the upscale Beverly Hills district, where the movie's glamorous setting truly came to life. One of the most iconic locations featured in the film was the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, which graciously allowed filming both inside and outside its premises. The hotel's elegant lobby served as the backdrop for several important scenes, while other sequences were filmed at the historic Ambassador Hotel, sadly now demolished, adding a touch of nostalgia to the movie's legacy. The posh Voltaire restaurant, where Vivienne experiences her first encounter with snails, was not just a set, but a real-life establishment known as Cicada. Similarly, the Rodeo Drive boutique, where Vivienne faces snobbery while attempting to shop for a designer outfit, was located at 9501 Santa Monica Boulevard. Originally named Bullmeach Boutique, it has since been transformed into the renowned Badgley Mishka store. In celebration of the film's 25th anniversary, the Beverly Wilshire Hotel launched an extravagant Pretty Woman for a Day package, offering guests the opportunity to indulge in the ultimate luxury experience. For a staggering £66,000, guests could stay in the opulent presidential suite, enjoy 3 hours of personalized shopping on Rodeo Drive, and partake in a host of other high-end amenities, embodying the lavish lifestyle depicted in the film. Grossed £360 million. Finally, despite being made on a relatively modest budget of $14 million, the film's impact far exceeded expectations, becoming a cultural phenomenon and a box office sensation, with its enchanting storyline and captivating performances by Julia and Richard. Pretty Woman struck a chord with audiences around the globe, resonating with viewers of all ages and backgrounds. From its memorable characters to its iconic moments, the film captured the imagination of millions, earning widespread acclaim and adoration. The staggering success of the movie at the box office speaks volumes about its universal appeal and enduring popularity. Grossing an impressive £360 million worldwide, Pretty Woman soared to unprecedented heights, cementing its status as one of the most beloved romantic comedies of all time. Its remarkable achievement as the fourth most successful romantic comedy in history is a testament to its timeless charm and enduring legacy. Decades after its release, Pretty Woman continues to captivate new generations of viewers, enchanting audiences with its timeless tale of love, redemption, and the transformative power of human connection. As a cultural yardstick and a cinematic masterpiece, the film remains an enduring symbol of romance and fantasy, reminding us all of the magic of true love and the promise of happily ever after.